All right, I did mention I ended it with communism. So problem is like, do I want to be defending communism as opposed to capitalism? And so like I'm pretty organic with my talks, and so I want to see where it takes us. Well, okay, so basically communism. I mean, you can look at the Communist Manifesto, but it's not like a real government. That system, like Karl Marx was critiquing capitalism, and he was studying capitalism, and he kind of like let the chips fall where they may theoretically, and he was like, well, what's going to happen is um, as capitalism matures, it's gonna consume itself, and like the way it will do that is um, you're going to have classes of people in capitalism because communism is class less. There is no class in communism. So you're going to have capitalism is going to have classes, and you have money. And so what's going to happen is different classes will like fight with each other, and they will determine like what the workforce will get. And the competition, like you buy out the competition and all that. And so as things move on forward, the money starts trickling in reverse, doesn't go down. And so this 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 like let's say this is like a geographic piece of territory. Well, unless you're able to go out from there and go to other parts of the world and take from their resources and also take advantage of the workforce there, like what we did, since the beginning of this country. Like it's a slowly. I mean, look at Cuba, how we try to take Cuba just because Cuba was independent of, they became independent of Spain, and like, well, yeah, we had a hand in that, so we want to take over Cuba, and Cuba's like, nope, we're independent of you too. Look at how we took from United States. We took like California and and Arizona and New Mexico and what have you. Utah from Mexico. I think Utah was a part of it. We took the lower part of the United States from Mexico, and the west and the lower part was all Mexico. We took that. So that's how you expand, and you have to expand. Now, we first started taking advantage of the Indians, I would say. We as we were evolving, the forefathers, like we got rid of the English crown, which I mean, 1492 is when Columbus comes here, but 1786 we decided that we don't like how things are. And you look at that, one of the many reasons that we fought against King George was because um, he made a pact with the Indians, made a treaty with the Indians, and anything west of the Appalachian Mountains is theirs. We can't go there. Well, guess what? Our people didn't like that. Our richer class didn't like that. So I mean, look it up. This is again, I'm just inspired to talk today, and I'm just going off the top of my head when I remember. So you have that, and so like this thing where oh, Sergio's a communist, he's defending communism. Well, I'm looking at it like this. You, it's like no, you know. I mean, like again, if you're listening to what I'm saying, we've been here for like a quarter of a million years. There was no communists. You don't call it that. You just call people living with each other on the planet. It's like John Lennon. Was he a communist because he wrote the song Imagine? There's no heaven, there's no hell, just people with the sky above us living with each other or for each other. I mean, that's come on, people. This is where some people will have their humanity intact or in a sense a type of a dimension. Like so I think the more free will you have, the closer to being human you might be. Well, I don't know if your free will is to kill people and you're on the Epstein list. I don't know. I'm sorry. So it's kind of tricky, like the whole free will thing. I don't want to get into that, but your humanity. I mean, you listen to people. Wow, this guy's pretty down to earth. Like John Lennon, as tripped out as he was. It's funny because the people really trip out are the most grounded. He's a very grounded individual, and he's like, yeah, he kind of makes sense. Well, it's like kind of like what a nomad would say, or like a caveman would say. It's like, well, yeah, we kind of, we already we've known that for, you know, since the woolly mammoth, son. It's like that's what it is. And so like we live in this world, and then like so somebody's determining how you should live your life. It's like who came up with that? Well, it's like we're the republic. We vote for representatives that represents a certain part of a given piece of territory. Like Arizona, we have representatives. We have 2 cents per state, blah blah blah. It's like yeah, but for some reason it's not working. The House of Representatives are they it's like they're looking out for themselves. And these people, they're all millionaires. And if you want to run for like, oh, I'm going to become a mayor and I'm going to run, you have to have like $1 million or close. You have to have all this money. Money is, you got to get money out of the politics. And so and here's the thing about money, people. If a lot of people would agree that you have to take money out of politics to do good politics, well, why should it stop there? Maybe money is the freaking problem to begin with. Think of that. Like, you know, it's like so I don't want to be like, pigeonholed. Oh, well, you're a communist. And well, communism never works. Well, how could it? Look up the Jakarta method. Post World War II, where we destroyed Indonesia, the capital of Indonesia, which is the same name. Anything that look at Cuba. Like what happened with Cuba. Like they had a revolt. Because the farmers there were like starving when we have Americans going over there as tourists, and like these Cuban businessmen are all like, yeah, we're in bed with all this capitalism stuff, but the population at large is like, man, this fucking sucks. So like if you look it up, like I tried to look it up earlier, like so if you do a general AI search and you ask if Cuba gave us like some kind of generators or respirators, in the beginning of the pandemic, it says, oh no, it's the contrary. And it says all this bull crap, and also there was an embargo against Cuba and all this, and actually Donald Trump helped Cuba and gave Cuba aid, like currently. And I'm like, what? So like that's bullshit. You can't. So here's the thing, so AI is another animal, another monster. So like AI is nothing but a bunch of people, folks. That's all it is. And so it's like a bunch of people running around getting data off the internet to answer your question in real time. And like because I mean, obviously it was made by people. They have all these, things with AI now, how it's just changing the grid and what data centers and all that. And that's the whole thing about AI. I don't want to, get into it. I sometimes use AI. It's like, well, how could you do that? Well, the fact that you drive a car, it's not hurt helping something else. You driving a car, or you know, it's kind of a tricky situation. People who hate AI, it's like in their artists, it's like, well, I remember hating computer graphics. I've been doing art before a lot of people. I've been drawing since I was like 3, and I never stopped. And so when computers came along, I was like, fuck, I was adept with gouache, acrylics, oils. I could paint and draw anything with any of these 2D mediums, and then computers come along. So it's like, and the same people now who do computer graphics, they're the ones voicing against AI. And I was like, well, I was a voice against all of it from the beginning. And I worked for a video game company anyways. Okay, when in Rome. So I had a compromise. I remember having a colleague who I got a master's in fine art. Michael Brennan's like, oh, you're gonna get a job in New York Chicago doing computer graphics. He goes, yeah, make video games. He goes, no, don't do it, don't do it. He was like a genuine like, he was like a traditionalist, like he only using hands on like paints and stuff. And I go, well, I think I should, because I have to, when in Rome, and so and so I kind of run off. I remember when I was there, I was in Chicago, I was working with these people at high voltage, and I was like, it'd be cool if I did a drawing of like say something, and then the computer makes it into a 3D thing. And I remember somebody reprimanding me, that's impossible. Some program was like bitching at me because I came up with that. Well, hey, guess what, people? That's what AI is doing. You know. So, but anyways, so the thing is, you have to understand the problem is with that. you're on the grid and using that stuff for data, and you look up Cuba, it's like, look, folks, you have to really remember shit. I remember it well. When the pandemic first hit, Donald Trump, yeah, he was blaming China, which, okay, I know it's like, hey, it's a lab leak kind of a thing. I'm not going to argue against the lab leak, conspiracy. But if that's the truth, we were doing it with China, at the Wuhan, uh, center there. I mean, I don't want to get into that, but like about Cuba, Cuba was sending out stuff everywhere. Probably because there's Cubans all over the world, and hey, we got to send it out to help our people. I don't know that part, but they were sending out like doctors and I mean, in Cuba, you don't have homeless people. People have free medicine. That's how they thought. That's how they, So like they were trying to give us stuff, and so but we have an embargo. We blocked it. So Trump blocked the shit that Cuba was trying to help us with. One person might have been saved if he didn't think about this, people. And it's like Cuba, you know, and what really gets me is when Cubans themselves say, "Yeah, we don't like socialism here at all." It's like, what do you these people who say that on social media? They're American. They're like in America, and their parents were Cuban, and their kids are here saying that. You can't trust any of this. People are like what I'm trying to say. You gotta like read shit. Read Plato's Republic, man. I did when I was I was undergrad school. I mean, some of it kind of went over my head, and I was, but I didn't, it's like so. It's like Socrates, who was in. I mean, they made fun of democracy because idiots vote. You're an idiot if you think that like communism is all bad and capitalism is all good. That's exactly what Socrates was trying to say. Socrates. This is before the time of Jesus. We've been thinking about this stuff all along. And yet here we are. Basically what's going on is your brain has been your mind, the conscience thereof has been handed to you on a platter. And you're programmed. And you've got to know this. You've got to I mean, the fact that you speak English or any language at all, who told you to speak that? You were taught that. You're already like, you have like that ring around your nose and the rope tied around that ring. So you gotta be like, you gotta question what is my purpose? Why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And you're yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. What is that? I'm not saying be a vagrant and cause trouble, but like if you follow their rules, you're gonna remain poor. And then you have like somebody on YouTube, hey, I'm gonna teach you how to make money and be rich, and it's like it's the same fucking problem. And yes, I need to have more money, but that's not the goal. And so like Jim Carrey, he became famous only to say, you know what, being being famous is not what it's cracked up to. It's not what I thought. So he wants to be anonymous. So he starts like shitting on the whole system of Hollywood and all that. And like he's doing this thing about the Illuminati and all that. I mean, because he's like this guy, because he's his own man. He is not brainwashed. He's found his humanity. I think Keanu Reeves is another one, and he's not as political. Keanu Reeves is like closest thing to Jesus in Hollywood that I can even imagine. He's what, Native Indian, like American Indian or something like that. Um, again, it's off the top of my head, so like, oh, well, you're wrong about this or that. It's like, well, I'm sorry, Hanuman, is a monkey god, not Rama. I don't know. I don't know where that came from. It's just kind of off the top of my head. But like, so the whole about communism, like, let's look at it. Like, so you have like Joseph Stalin and Lenin. They're the ones that did all this nasty killing and shit. I don't think Karl Marx was interested in that, folks. He was a philosopher. And so he was critiquing capitalism. And he was like, and he was right. So capitalism, what it does is it starts out looking pretty good, like kind of like And I don't think Adam Smith was the devil, because Adam Smith he wrote The Wealth of Nations, a time when we were trying to get away from the aristocracy. And so that's the thing. It's not like this black and white thing. You have people working, and then okay, you have a specialized workforce. But the problem with specialized workforces, I'm only specialized in like putting this widget in this thing like that at the, you know, the assembly line. But you throw me out in the woods, I can't survive. We lost our, we are connected to this planet. We are a product of nature. And we've lost ourselves to our own narrative, which is our infrastructure that is being fed us. In this case, capitalism. I don't think China is much better. If you live in China, I'm sorry, I don't think it's much better. You have Chinese elites, and you have American elites, and you have Russian elites. They're the ones controlling everything. They control the narrative. And then you have these investors, stock shareholders and banks. That's what's going on. Like, so when we started fighting with Russia and Ukraine, or Ukraine started fighting with us in Ukraine, like United States, or not us, but the Ukrainians. I've never been to Ukraine. Well, I think BlackRock was all on that. Look at BlackRock, man. It's like the biggest equity firm or biggest, financial, company in the planet, along with like State Street and that kind of thing. These are the people that control and rule you. And the thing is, they don't want to get rid of religion completely. They want to use religion to control you. The religious are easier controlled than the irreligious, except for your religious fanatics, and then they're like, they you know they follow Saddam Hussein and crashing the planes for like 20 virgins or 50 virgins or whatever. I don't know. How much of that is true? Like, so again, like, so it's really hard to get all the information. You're never going to know the truth. I don't think I'm going to know the complete truth about what's really going on. I'm going to know like bits and pieces of it. But if I'm finding myself voting for ICE to do what ICE is doing currently right now, I know that there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with my head. Yes, I still have to work a job to earn a paycheck because, hey, I don't know how to survive out in the woods. And it's like people say, hey, we don't, hey, you can go out and live out in the woods. No, you can't. There's no Magna Carta decreed by our king government that says, yeah, just go out there, you and your gypsy friends, and you can just, that'd be fun. If I was 20 years old and me and, 10 or 15 other guys go out there somewhere and let's try to really, make something happen, go in and out of town, but you live off the land, more people would be privy to doing that, living off the grid. We're intelligent enough to be able to do it. And I think that's what's going to probably happen as things really start to hit the fan, because right now what's happening is, so it's the whole, okay, communism. What's going on right now is ultimately elites that are more leaning towards communism are fighting elites that are leaning towards capitalism. And everything is happening in between with us at the bottom of it. That's what's going on here. The elites are going to fight with themselves. So with the capitalists, like Karl Marx, he saw this. He would know. He knew that. Well, rich people will fight amongst each other and use us against each other. And so the competition is really not a competition. It's staged. And so you have people buying things out. And so people are working. And so you have to go out and get more. You have to get resources from outside of this sector or this geography of land. And that's what we did. We first started doing with the Indians, because America wasn't the entire United States from the east to the west coast, Pacific to the Atlantic Ocean. It was like it was just like like Atlantic Ocean, that all the East Coast, that kind of stuff. Those states, and then west of the Appalachian Mountains afterwards, right? So and so you first take those people, then you take Mexico, and then want to take Cuba. We took Hawaii, and then you start like with during Reagan's presidency, he was like trying to commit a genocide in well, in Nicaragua, I think it was. I'll look it up. I think Oliver Stone made a movie about that. Salvador or something like that. Again, top of my head, it's been a while. But like, and then like the Jakarta method, look that up. How any kind of, including Cuba, that are socialists, we will make sure that they get so many things like sanction embargoes, fuck them up the ass as much as we can. We were killing people in Jakarta, destroying and using their people to do it too. because you could brainwash people. You could brainwash people to hate something that might have been okay, and it's like, well, if you do this, we'll get you something even better. Like Nixon, like stopping the peace talks, we'll get you something better. It's like, are you gonna trust that guy? You know, it's like, and then like you look at, well, communists, well, the Chinese are communists. Well, if you look at the history of China and what England and the Dane and the I think it's the Dutch, what they were trying to do back in the day, like we're going way back into history. you know um we got them addicted to opium because they only want to trade with us using their silver. They had stuff that we wanted, and it's like shit. We because that's what imperialism is. Capitalism is directly an offshoot of imperialism. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. And so America is an imperialist type of regime. It's so obvious. Like the Department of Defense has been changed to the Department of War. And then we like, let's invade, Venezuela. And the people in there, the woman president in there, she was in cahoots with what Trump did. You see, people like it's not black and white. And Jacques Fresco, he said that all governments are corrupt. Look up Jacques Fresco. Anyways, like so we, you know, um, we're just being fed the scraps of truth. And so you got to really, and so one of the things about social media is people like, even I'll put this on YouTube, so there it is, so when in Rome, I got to, um, and so, uh, um, so like like I mentioned all these, places that we expanded into, and then like, it, we have to keep doing that. Like that's what Europe did to like that's what England did to China, and what I really think what's really going on. Look how big Russia is on a map, folks. How many times can you drop the United States on a flat surface of like say an image of Russia? How many United States can you drop in there? Russia is huge, a lot bigger than China. It's the hugest of the huge of it's fucking huge. Don't you think that some elites like they're secretly like we gotta get rid, we have to break up Russia, and there are certain people in Russia that probably want to do that. They want to break up Russia, and then like you make it like what everything else is on the grid here, and so what's on the grid is like this. You have the lowest, like um strata layer of people, and we're all like doing the people of the higher classes bidding, because the most powerful energy resource is still manpower. It's not AI. Everyone thinks that AI is going to take all our jobs and all that. No, I don't think that's true. I think that in some cases it will be true, and then but I don't think it's not for a while that you're going to have like just the elite living like the gods of a Mount Olympus, and everything else is gone. Because and here's the thing, here's the scenario. Let's say that's true. You have like how many people are at billionaire status? Like take them, and we're all gone. Well, you know what? They would start fighting each other. And so that's why it's not that simple. Oh, AI is going to replace all our jobs, and like and they're going to kill us all off. I don't think they can kill us all off, because the thing is, who's going to buy their bullshit? So that's where the energy it goes to them from us. If we still are like, you know, like Conan, remember Conan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, dun, dun, around that. Dun, dun, dun. That's what we are. That's how you run empires, manpower. Think about it. We are still needed. And at the same time, the essential worker doesn't make diddly squat. It's like people will handle food, It's like, I don't know, it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm doing great. It's like, you're disrespected if you handle food. I'm sorry, And people, you have two people walking in there, one guy is a lawyer, and the other one's like an investor, and they're at Denny's. Oh, how much do they respect the waitress? You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. But if nobody's there serving people food and all that, And to not just the waitress, but in terms of processing food and packaging it and selling it and anything to do with food, you fucking starve. You can't go out there and get your own food. I mean, people who are pro-cap, like people are like freedom and capitalism and all that. It's like, well, what's 100% free? I'll take your ass and drop your ass in the fucking Mojave Desert. Now you know what real freedom is. You can't fucking handle freedom. We're not free, people. So the only kind of freedom you can really have is between your ears. And that's probably what I'm meant to do, is to help you realize, are you really free between your ears? And that's what all this stuff is. So it's not about, oh, I'm a communist, I'm going to defend communism. I'm a Catholic, I'm going to defend capitalists. I'm a Christian, I'm going to defend Christianity. I'm questioning all of it. But remember I was talking about the monad? That's like beyond, that's like a god of gods. That's like beyond God. And so Sergio believes in something pretty hardcore, like really way up there. He talked about the divine inside of us. So it's not like I have no sense of, spirituality or morality, but you start walking around proselytizing to people about spirituality and you're eating a chicken, and you're going to try to lecture like Weird Al Yankovic or somebody who's a vegan. I mean, if you really want to be spiritual or religious, chances are they have it all over your ass because they're like they have sympathy or empathy for animals because they're living creatures and they feel pain and they know that they could think to a certain degree. We even know that about plants. The lyceum of all these plants and stuff, and they trees they warn other plants when people are coming with bulldozers and shit. They measured it. And they know when predators are coming and they communicate with each other. The whole thing is alive. And what's interesting about that is, so first of all, Hinduism is the first oldest religion, orthodox, or like arranged, organized. But there's something a lot older. It's called animism. That's probably 100,000 years old, folks. We're always pushing the dates back for like how long people have been on this planet. It doesn't go, oh, well, we're wrong. It's a few thousand years old. No, 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 no. It's always like older, older, older. And so that's why I say instead of like 50,000, maybe 100,000, maybe 200,000, and it's like, well, how could like the civilization only happen like, with Göbekli Tepe and, then Sumeria and all that shit, well, because we were able to live without all this shit. Look at all the stuff that we need to live. I got a mouse. This is for my glass. Without these glasses, I'm fucked, people. You know, I have I have all sorts of gadgets. I have this, you have this. We have all these things. We should walk around with like tubes sticking out of our ass and our mouths and our ears and our eyes and walk around. Oh, okay, now I'm really independent. I can actually live. It's like you're always hungry. Every 5 or 8 hours you have to eat. You need medical insurance. We are so lame and so weak and so fragile. But you go outside, you see how animals are, like these wild birds and shit in your neighborhood. They have everything. It's not like they just fly around and they eat and they reproduce. They got everything, folks. And like animals and stuff. And then we wind up taking them, we domesticate them. We have these little chihuahuas that would be lunch out in the wild. you know. So it's like, and we're the epitome of all those things that we domesticated. We're the greatest domesticated example of a failure of a living organism that you could ever imagine. If you want to be independent and free, good luck. You're a social animal. So that's why they have communism as commune, a community. Guess what? The first Christians were communists, like the Essenes and all that. They were living in a commune. The Essenes lived in a fucking commune and shit. You get like, like these American Christians and they're beating their chest and like, hey, yeah, it's like you're crazy if you think it has anything spiritual to do with it. It's an offshoot of imperialism. Again, not to say that like you go look at Russia and they invade Ukraine and all that, and like Putin, he wants to make like this is the pentagram, he wants to make the pentagram illegal, like Satan worshippers, like devil worship, like Satanism. But I mean, it's like, okay, I worship Satan, I'm gonna go out and eat children. Okay, Yeah, that if I'm just because I worship Satan doesn't mean shit. But if I'm out there killing and eating children, yeah, then I should be, executed or arrested. Yeah, executed, tried and executed. But the problem with that is, you go to a metaphysical bookstore in Phoenix or Tempe, and if there's like a pentagram and a goat, oh well, then that's against the law. You got to go to jail for 7 years. Meanwhile, he's killing all these people in Ukraine. The devil ain't doing it. Where does the devil have an army of soldiers killing all these people? Did the devil invade Ukraine? No, Crimea. That wasn't the devil. That was a man. And it's funny because he's bringing Eastern Orthodox religion, Christianity, back. You know, which is really unique and interesting because it was like people like Stalin and Lenin. They were like, let's fuck that, and they fuck you up the ass if you're doing religious things. Now Karl Marx, he was irreligious, but he was a philosopher. He didn't say go out and kill all these religious people. He wasn't. That's not what Karl Marx was doing. So that's why I'm saying you got to like look into these things. So these sound bites. Oh, you're a communist. You know, and a capitalist. Yeah. I mean, if you're more like a Bernie Sanders kind of capitalist, maybe we could talk. He's a social democrat. A democratic socialist or whatever. You're still using money in business, but what I'm just saying, my compressors, I'm airbrushing, and so what I'm saying is, um, you're you're like you want to be free. What is it really to be free? I'll take you to the Mojave Desert, see how you live, you know. And so like we are so fragile. We have to have all these. You have to have all these tubes stuck in and out of you to live at this point. We're already have pacemakers and shit. They're not even they're not even biological. And I would think that the future of mankind is gonna be like a hybrid, part android and part biology. And so there's an artist named H.R. Giger, and I don't have my books anymore of him, but I can show you a book. It's like he makes those biomechanoids. It's kind of erotic all the time, but like, the idea is still there. You have biology and machines all merging together. That's a prophecy. That painting is a prophecy of what's going to happen. That not the look of it, like that style, is cool or whatever. No, it's the idea that 50% of a future man will be machine. That's where we're headed. Really, you have to really think about that. And so I think truly we were more 100% human beings like 50,000 years ago. But when cut to like say um, like 3,000 years ago, we're less human by that time. When we're on the grid living in cities and shit, we're less human. Let this really sink in. Let it really sink in. We've already lost our humanity, collectively speaking. We're not human, folks.